Dog Nation's postseason coverage, Go for 2 in 22, is made possible by our partners, including Kroger. Visit Kroger for all your holiday needs and to stock up for bowl season. R.S. Andrews, Dog Nation's choice for all your heating and air needs. Visit rsandrews.com to see how they can make you smile today. Marlowe's Tavern. Need a tasty gift this holiday season? Try a Marlowe's Tavern gift card. Visit marlowestavern.com. Georgia Farm Bureau. With local agents all across the state of Georgia, Georgia Farm Bureau is the home team. Find your agent today at gfbinsurance.com. Discover Dunwoody. Stay at one of our 9 hotels and enjoy easy access to 2 MARTA stations, which is just a short ride to downtown. Visit discoverdunwoody.com/dognation to book your stay today. Royal Caribbean. Reserve your cabin on the 2nd annual cruise with Dog Nation in April. Visit royaldogs.com to reserve your cabin today. The Wilson PC Personal Injury Attorneys. Because Atlanta happens from out of nowhere. When the unexpected happens to you, visit atlantahappens.com. The 7-6 Apparel Company. The perfect holiday gifts for the hard-to-find person in your family. Visit the76.com to start shopping today. And Berkshire Hathaway Home Services of Georgia. The best time for new beginnings is now. Forever moving you. Visit bhhsgeorgia.com to start your search today. And here's your host, Brandon Adams.
Hello, Dog Nation. I'm Brandon Adams. Welcome into this special Go for 2 in 22 video event. Just getting a chance a moment ago to hear from Georgia coach Kirby Smart, updating the status of the Dogs as they head towards the Peach Bowl against Ohio State. We're going to share with you over the course of the next few minutes some of the news and information that comes out of this Kirby Smart press availability. Also, yesterday, we had a chance to hear from Ohio State coach Ryan Day, and we'll hear some from Coach Day on today's show, too. Both these press conferences in the last couple of days with both these coaches, really more a reflection of, I guess, the official invite from the Peach Bowl to the two teams. So these were media opportunities generated by the Peach Bowl itself, as opposed to, from Georgia, from Ohio State. So there's probably a little less substance, a little less time with these press conferences, but nonetheless, some important questions from Kirby Smart got answered a moment ago, or at least new information about those questions, and so we'll share that with you, and we'll give you a little bit of insight from the enemy sideline, too, about what's going on there with Ohio State as well. And also, as we get ready to set the stage and preview the Peach Bowl, it's not going to just be me talking here on today's show, and we won't just hear from Kirby Smart and Ryan Day. I want to hear from you on this, too. So we're going to invite you to whichever video comment section you're a part of right now. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or dognation.com, certainly those platforms in particular, you'll see a link to click into and join the show. We'll take a few of your calls here live on the air as a part of our Go for 2 in 22 event. Of course, we thank all of our terrific sponsors for being such a big part of what we're doing here around the program. So go ahead and hop on and be there, and give me just a second because I do have some business I have to take care of. We want to hear from you, but we also want to give the rest of the audience a chance to hear from the coaches involved today, too, as we kind of figure out where things stand for Georgia and Ohio State as you get ready for the Peach Bowl and the mission to Go for 2 here in 22. So let's start with that and Georgia coach Kirby Smart a moment ago. One of the big questions that has surrounded UGA, the injury status of a number of players, including key cogs like Warren McClendon, your starter right tackle, Ladd McConkey, one of your most important wide receivers, their injury status, and also a guy like, say, Marvin Jones Jr., who also had to leave with injury as well. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a snippet from Kirby Smart here. The onset of this clip is Smart talking about where things stand with McConkey, where things stand with McClendon. Then you'll hear our Connor Riley then pivot that question to Marvin Jones Jr. and also Bill Norton as well. Norton is in the transfer portal. He has not heard what his status is for the Peach Bowl as well. So a little bit of insight from Smart on injuries to McClendon, McConkey, Marvin Jones Jr., and the lone Georgia player currently in the transfer portal, Bill Norton. This is Kirby Smart from just a couple of minutes ago.
I don't know when exactly we'll get those guys back. I don't know that. They're not practicing with us right now. They're conditioning, they're running, they're moving around, but they're not practicing just yet. But we're still, 16, 17 days out.
Yeah, in a similar vein, an update on Marvin Jones Jr. and Bill Norton. Is he practicing with the team, or once you go in the portal, you are?
I don't think there's a set standard on that, so that's not really important. We're worried about the guys that that are getting ready to play. Marvin Jones has been great. He's run, he's conditioned. He's been doing a ton of conditioning things with us on the side. Probably going to be able to start practicing with us here soon, if not today.
So our buddy Silent Chaos in the YouTube comments section says, yes, a rare live afternoon show from Dog Nation. That's right. Since Kirby Smart spoke a moment ago, and we're all obviously excited about what's going to happen between Georgia and Ohio State and the Peach Bowl and the College Football Playoff, we wanted to be here live to talk about that. That's why we're here right now. So Silent Chaos and the rest of you tuning in to be a part of this, we appreciate that. And if you want to join us live to talk on video, we'll give you a chance to do that too. As far as what Kirby Smart said a moment ago, let me see if I can kind of read between the lines on some of this, and you tell me if your takeaway on this is the same as mine. Let me start on the subject of Bill Norton. You heard Connor, our colleague, ask Kirby directly, for Norton, is this a situation where he's in the transfer portal but he can still participate in the Peach Bowl, or is this a situation that once you're in the portal, you're no longer a part of this team? And Kirby did not really answer that question directly, but he certainly seemed to intimate there that Norton is not a part of Georgia's preparation for the Peach Bowl right now, which ultimately is probably more interesting in terms of the overall philosophical point of view on this than it is for Norton himself. No disrespect to Bill, but wouldn't be a big player for Georgia in the Peach Bowl anyway. But this is a little bit of a mindset right now of, you know, apparently Georgia's not viewing its transfer player or potential transfer players as part of its playoff story here as you head towards the Peach Bowl. Now, what I think is kind of interesting about this is if you're a Georgia fan, and I've said this before, that just given the current state of affairs, I don't think you have any right to expect that no Georgia players will leave this team before next year arrives. The portal is obviously open. It's going to be used, and Georgia players are going to be looking to leverage this the same way that players from other programs are. But I think the hope that you've had is, well, can it at least stay somewhat quiet and at least stay somewhat calm while the task at hand is trying to win a national championship? And I guess the perception of that you get right now is that, yeah, it is kind of staying kind of quiet, and it is being kind of well managed by Georgia. Norton, I believe, is publicly the only player in the transfer portal for Georgia, and I think every other team in the SEC right now, there's lots of websites that chronicle this, but I believe every other website in the SEC right now has at least 6 players already in the transfer portal. Many have far more than that. So Georgia is by far and away a huge outlier in terms of the limited number of players that it does have in the transfer portal, just Norton right now. Sounds like Norton's not a big part of what Georgia's doing here at the moment, so presumably any other transfer portal player maybe would be treated the same way. So kind of a non-answer from Kirby that probably still gives you the information that you want. I also thought that Kirby Smart a moment ago struck a very hopeful tone as it relates to Marvin Jones Jr. That's a player that Georgia needing all the help that he can get with the edge rush spot, getting after quarterbacks. When you think about the game plan for Georgia and how it beat Tennessee, maybe Ohio State, the team most similar to Tennessee that the Dogs could play here, and what you did that day getting after Hendon Hooker, making things very difficult on him, really grounding and neutralizing that high-powered Tennessee offensive attack because of how well you got after the pass. I should say the pass rush got after the quarterback that day. Obviously, as many hands on deck as you can get for that would be crucial, and it sounds like Kirby Smart sees some good things when it comes to Marvin Jones Jr. and his potential of returning to full health and being a full go. Maybe less hopeful, I guess, on Ladd McConkey and Warren McClendon. Kirby is right. We're still a long way away from the game being played, but as Smart also said elsewhere in the same press conference, Georgia has been practicing, and it sounds like as if you had McConkey and McClendon haven't really been a big part of that too much as of yet. So those are important players. Those are guys that you really want to hear good news on, and I don't think we quite got that on them today, and maybe it's going to be that way all the way up until game time, that Smart will be similarly coy on these the same way that he has been other injuries throughout the season. But maybe not quite the good news you'd like to have gotten on Ladd McConkey and Warren McClendon, but obviously a more hopeful tone that was struck as it relates to Marvin Jones Jr. So those injury updates coming from Kirby Smart just a moment ago. Also, another key storyline that's out there right now, the departure of a staffer. Buster Faulkner is not an on-field coach for Georgia. He's an offensive analyst, pretty well paid in the role that he's in. I think he makes somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000, $300,000 to work with Georgia, not as a coach, but as a quality control analyst, assisting with game planning, and someone that Stetson Bennett, the Georgia quarterback, going back to last week, has said is kind of a security blanket of sorts for him during the games, acting kind of as an intermediary between Bennett and Georgia offensive coordinator Todd Monken. Todd apparently does not speak as much during the games with Stetson Bennett. Bennett saying that he really kind of, because of the fact that Monken's kind of a hard-driving guy, Bennett's kind of a hard-driving guy, sometimes having that go-between is kind of a valuable asset. That's what Faulkner's kind of been for Georgia. It remains to be seen if Georgia will have Faulkner in that role for the Peach Bowl and the rest of the college football playoff, the national championship that comes up after that. This is what Kirby said about Faulkner now that it is official that he will be hired and has been hired as Georgia Tech's offensive coordinator. Will he even be sticking around for the college football playoff? This the answer that Smart gave to that question a little earlier today.
We're going to determine that probably at a later date. Still in conversation with Buster and Brent. It's not something that's pressing right now because he doesn't really get to do anything in practice. So we're practicing right now. He's a supplement to ideas with Coach Monken, and he can certainly still do that from the position he's in, and we'll determine that at a later date.
So, as I said before, that's the status from Smart on Faulkner, and what he says is absolutely true, which is that there's nothing for Faulkner to do right now anyway. He's not a participant in practice. He's just a participant in getting a game plan ready and obviously on the sidelines for Stetson Bennett, and ultimately that's the part of this that's the most important. And I want to make this really clear. I think that Buster Faulkner is a really valuable asset and has been to Georgia, and I think that Faulkner has a really bright future ahead of him when it comes to a coaching situation. I almost kind of hated the fact that he's going to Georgia Tech because I do think that Buster's probably a pretty good coach. And, I like to root for Buster Faulkner because I think he's given Georgia a pretty good boost here the last couple of years. And it's a shame to think that he's going to be over there at the North Avenue Trade School doing that for them now. But listen, who knows how things change in the future. But the point is that no matter what you think of Faulkner and no matter what you think of his future as a coach, the fact is that his presence for Georgia in the Peach Bowl or the college football playoff at large is really more of a luxury than a necessity. That's the kind of thing that Stetson Bennett has been comfortable with him, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he would be lost without him. It's not a necessity, the thing you have to have, but if you could have that extra pair of hands, that extra eyeballs, that extra calming influence, you'd probably like to have that. So we will see if Georgia does have that with Buster Faulkner, but if it doesn't, if Faulkner moves on, which sometimes he's not a coach. It's not like he's got a coaching responsibility on game day. If a guy like that does move on, you would presume there are other folks, maybe even Mike Bobo, who could kind of fill into the role that Faulkner has been for Georgia and Bennett there on game day. This is a Go for 2 in 22 special event. Kirby Smart speaking a moment ago. We are reacting to some of the things that Smart had to say on the injury front, on the Buster Faulkner front, and Smart also had some other things to say, too. You can stay close to DogNation.com. You can go to the Dog Nation YouTube page and watch the full press conference in its entirety. You can go to the website, DogNation.com, and read more details there about what Smart said about Ohio State, reflecting back on the life of Mike Leach. And obviously, we continue to be sad for the loss of really one of the more intriguing and interesting figures in recent college football history. And Smart had some things to say about that here today as well. And as a part of our show here, too, we're going to take your calls. Now, what I'm hearing, Michael, on the Facebook front is that there is a link in the comment section, but it can't be clicked on. So we'll see if we can fix that. Okay, so if you'll refresh now, it should be corrected. So if you want to click that, be a part of the show, we'll give you a chance to do that. We are also going to get a chance to hear from Ohio State coach Ryan Day. Day this week, meeting with reporters, much the same way that Kirby Smart did a moment ago, had some things to say about Georgia and Stetson Bennett in particular. We'll tell you what that was and let you hear it for yourself here in a moment. But first, another quick word from some of our sponsors.
Dog Nation's postseason coverage, Go for 2 in 22, is made possible by our partners, including
Kroger. Visit Kroger for all your holiday needs and to stock up for bowl season.
R.S. Andrews, Dog Nation's choice for all your heating and air needs.
Marlowe's Tavern. Need a tasty gift this holiday season? Try a Marlowe's Tavern gift card. Visit marlowestavern.com. And now, back to the show.
Thank you so much there, and thank you so much to our great sponsors who made all of this so possible, doing a great job for us, and we're so thankful for that. The fun tailgate we had a couple of weeks ago and all the great coverage we can give you leading into this game coming up. We are just so happy to have that, and our great sponsors make all of that possible. As I told you, we're going to get a chance to hear from our sponsors. I should say we've already heard from our sponsors. We're going to hear from Ohio State coach Ryan Day here coming up in a moment. What Day had to say about Georgia, Stetson Bennett in particular. But prior to that, we want to hear from you. The phone lines are open, as the saying goes, so you can click the link to join us via Zoom at Facebook or YouTube or DogNation.com, wherever you happen to be right now. You can be a part of that, including our buddy Ryan Walker, who's always so great to have us and be a part of all of this with us. Ryan joins us here on Go for 2 in 22. Ryan, thanks for your participation in the show. Hope you are doing well. Now, you had a promise for us the other day. You put this in the Facebook comments section that you're going to do something special for us. So let's see if Ryan's ready to make good on that promise here right now.
Man, I deliver just like Kirby Smart, man. Don't try me like that, BA. I got something for you guys. I got something for you guys that I'm gonna show you or whatnot. I did a little something for you guys
Wow, look at
for
that.
Dog Nation. The legacy continues through Dog Nation with you guys with the great Larry Munson in the back.
Wow.
I created this for you guys, man.
I tell you what, Ryan, that is an unbelievable thing to see, and you know how much Larry Munson, his legacy means to me. So to even be mentioned in that way is really a staggering compliment for me, Ryan. It means the world to me to see that. You're obviously an incredibly talented guy. I appreciate that so much, and Ryan, that is just a very, very nice thing, and I really, really thank you for that. How about this game coming up against Ohio State? How you feeling about that right now?
Honestly, when you look at it, we already know what we bring to the table. Let's just talk about Ohio State for a second. We know that they're a pass-happy team. You have Marvin Harrison Jr., who's a stud, but at the end of the day, you have to account for the fact that C.J. Stroud's been hit a lot this year.
Yeah.
So in the Big Ten, so when you look at Jalen Carter, you look at Nazir Stackhouse, you look at Robert Bill Jr., Pops Dumas, you look at all these guys that we have on this defense, Javon Bullard coming in on blitzes. If you can put pressure on C.J. Stroud and at least get him thinking and take the timing out of his routes, it literally helps our defense in a situation to where we can generate turnovers. We can get 3 and outs. Offensively, I feel like we do this. With Georgia, I feel as if we're how you would say you have a lion that plays with its food before it eats it?
Yeah.
When we get a little bored during the game, I think the dogs, they get a little disinterested or disheartened and like, man, we want a little bit of a challenge. They let a team get hope and then they just snatch it right out of their mouths and just take it from them.
It certainly seems like that's been the case a lot this year, Ryan. It definitely does.
So I think I'll just say this here. As I always quote, I have my quotes or whatnot. I see Chef Kirby throwing up a 40. I say about a 42-piece extra sauce. Keep it messy with no napkins with a side of peach cobbler. We beat these boys 42-17, and we head to the national championship. And I'm calling an upset on this. I think if Michigan plays like we know 2 quarters and they give up, TCU's going to upset them. I really believe that that's going to happen.
Boy, that's right. That's a big prediction. I appreciate your call. Thank you so much for being with us here today. That's really good stuff. Thank you for that. Big prediction there on the idea of TCU doing what it may be able to do against Michigan, setting up maybe an unexpected national championship matchup for Georgia, and also that bold prediction as it relates to UGA, 42-17 there. So Ryan's always a great caller. And how about the T-shirt that he made? Larry Munson in the background, the Dog Nation folks. See, for those of you who maybe don't tune in a lot, Ryan does this for a lot of our post-game shows and things like that. He kind of makes these custom T-shirts. It's kind of one of his art, forms of artwork. He's really a very talented guy, and that was really something special to see. So, Ryan, I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much, and strong prediction as well. And the point that he makes about the pass rush, I think, is a really good one in that, look, the one time that Georgia really needed it this year, it just called it right up against Tennessee. Georgia had not been that aggressive at getting after quarterbacks at any point in time all year long, had not really been doing that. And yet when they really needed to, boom, there it was. It almost materialized out of nothing, in which, they never really had to do it prior to that because the teams they were playing just weren't good enough to really threaten them in that way. And maybe you were kind of left to wonder, well, is this one of those things where Georgia just doesn't really need to, or it can't really do this because it doesn't have Trayvon Walker anymore, doesn't have, Nakobe Dean anymore, or, some of the guys would obviously contribute to that great success last season. And what you found out was, okay, the one time this year when you really had to have it, if you let Hendon Hooker stand back there and just have all day to throw, then the odds are Tennessee would have had a much better day offensively. But Georgia didn't allow that to happen. Georgia stepped up and dominated and got after the quarterback when it needs to. Well, lo and behold, you're facing the next team on your schedule, probably the only other team on your schedule that really kind of reminds you of what Tennessee was able to do, what Hooker was able to do in particular for most of the season. And you're left to wonder, okay, well, can Georgia just sort of flip that switch again? Because, as Ryan said, there has been some time lately in which Georgia has seemed maybe a little bit disinterested, maybe a little bit unmoved, unmotivated, unconcerned with whatever team they happen to be playing. And part of that we would all say is because Georgia has just been so much better than the teams that it has been playing. And we think Ohio State's probably another example of a team which Georgia's better than it too. But Ohio State's also more capable of challenging Georgia than most of the teams that it's played here this season. particularly when it comes to offense, with Stroud throwing to Marvin Harrison and what they can do offensively. And so Georgia being at the same level of focus, the same level of intensity, the same level of attack, the way that defense took on that same mindset against Tennessee, that is appropriate to conjure all that back up against Ohio State. And maybe if it is there, it will be just as thorough and just as dominant as Ryan just suggested. So great call by him. And by the way, you don't have to make a custom Dog Nation t-shirt in order to appear on the show. If you want to join us via Zoom, even without a prop, you're certainly allowed to be able to do that. But Ryan obviously gets us off to a great start. We'll have more time for some of your calls here coming up in just a moment. Also, the thoughts here of Ryan Day, the Ohio State coach, they matter today too. And yesterday we had a chance to hear some of those. Day being asked particularly about what Georgia does on the offensive side here. And Day, obviously fresh off having seen Stetson Bennett in the Heisman ceremony this past weekend, had a lot to say about the Georgia quarterback. But this from Ryan Day this week, his assessment on what he sees from Georgia offensively in response to a question. Here's from Columbus, Ohio.
You look at them offensively, and it's an interesting group, right? Because it's not a group that's loaded with superstars at receiver and a superstar running back, but they have extraordinary depth at tight end, and they have as veteran a quarterback as you can have in the college game. I'm just wondering how you evaluate them offensively and their unique nature as an offense.
Yeah, I think they do a great job of playing off the defense and special teams. All three are, put together really well. But specifically on offense, I think, Bennett kind of is the one that gets it all going. And certainly they have talent all across the board. Their offensive line's big. Both tight ends are very, very talented. Running backs are very good. Receivers are very good. But it's the quarterback that makes it all go. And he's played unbelievable, deserved certainly an opportunity to be down in New York City on Saturday night. And what an unbelievable story of somebody that, came through a lot of adversity along the way in his journey to get to where he's at. So, from afar, it's been a joy to watch him compete. And so, yeah, I think they do multiple things. They're creative in how they do them. And, they're certainly playing good football here down the stretch.
So that's Ohio State coach Ryan Day on the subject of the Georgia offense. We understand what he's doing. He's just trying to get to a press conference, just trying to say whatever he needs to say to move on to the next question. But I do think that, in one respect, that description of the if you're an Ohio State fan listening to your coach speaking right there, I think that you come away with a little bit of a mischaracterization of exactly what Georgia's supposed to be offensively. And this is not meant to be disrespect to Stetson Bennett at all. Georgia is just not nearly as quarterback-driven and dependent of a team as, say, Ohio State probably is. And it's not necessarily bad to be quarterback-driven, nor is it bad not to be quarterback-driven. Just teams are built different ways. And Georgia has proven in its national championship season a year ago that it can build itself differently and have just as much success as a team like Alabama or Ohio State that is a little bit more quarterback-dependent, but that's not really what Georgia is. And even in a year like this in which Stetson Bennett's a Heisman finalist, the same thing is still true. And in some future year, if Georgia goes on to have even some quarterback that's even of a different category, number one overall draft pick or something like that, once again, Georgia, because of the overall strength that the program is trying to build up here, it still won't be as quarterback-driven, as quarterback-dependent as maybe some other teams are, or maybe in this particular case is the way that Day kind of describes Georgia as being. That's just not what they are. So even though we've had a week of really a lot of Stetson Bennett talk, and I understand where it comes from, I'm a Georgia fan. When I hear Bennett maligned by, so-and-so in the media or so-and-so fan on some social media site or message board, well, I want to fire back on that too and make my case for Stetson. Many of you have done that as well. And yet, for as much talk as Stetson Bennett rightly has gotten after being a Heisman finalist, as you move towards the Peach Bowl, this is not a Wild West gunslinger showdown. This is not C.J. Stroud versus Stetson Bennett, no matter how much certain voices in the media might want to try to make it that way, because let's face it, it's always easier to sell a game when it's quarterback versus quarterback. But that's not the case. C.J. Stroud may be the face of the Ohio State program, but I don't know that Georgia as a program necessarily has an individual player as a face. I think that Bennett works pretty well as an avatar, much like maybe Jordan Davis would have a year ago. Bennett representing the thing that makes Georgia really cool, that it's a lot of guys working together to help each other, playing for each other, and enjoying playing with each other. And Stetson Bennett, I believe, probably represents that pretty well. But ultimately the notion of, hey, as Bennett goes, so goes this offense. Well, that may be putting a limitation on the Georgia offense that doesn't necessarily exist. As the Georgia offensive line goes, so goes this offense. As the Georgia rushing attack goes, so goes this offense. As the deepest crop of tight ends in the country goes, so goes this offense. As a wide receiver core with A.D. Mitchell back, potentially maybe a little more explosive than some folks realize, so goes this offense. That it's a lot of component pieces that makes the Georgia offense hum. When the Georgia offense is doing what it's doing, it's also creating an opportunity for the defense to have success as well. When the defense is setting up good field position, that creates an opportunity for the Georgia offense as well. That you really can't whittle down Georgia to just one name or just one thing. That Georgia is so much better than that, and that's one of the things that's made Georgia a national champion a year ago, and it's one of the reasons why we're able to talk about go for 2 in 22 right now. Now, as far as other things that Ohio State coach Ryan Day had to say, his overall description of what's currently happening in Columbus with the Buckeyes, actually not too different than what's going on with Kirby Smart here right now and the Georgia Bulldogs down in Athens. This is what Day said this week Ohio State's been busy doing since we last saw them play against Michigan going back at the end of the regular season. Here's Ryan Day again.
Yeah, inside of 3 weeks now. We talked about it going into that final weekend and then coming out of it, just a refocus. And I think our practices have been spirited so far. I think the guys have really had good urgency about them. I think they have a good feel for what this is going to be like, and just the electricity and how important every play is going to be into this game. So we're still in the fundamental phase. We're going to start making the transition into game planning here soon, and then we get down to bowl week. So we have 3 phases when we talk about bowl practice. But the energy's been really, really good, and guys are finishing up finals now, and now it's just going to be all football.
In a lot of ways, Day and Smart seem like such different coaches. And yet the thing that you just heard Ryan Day say is exactly like what we did hear from Kirby Smart a moment ago. In fact, you can go to the Dog Nation YouTube page and see the full press conference for your own enjoyment. And the kind of thing we've heard Kirby say over and over again to begin seasons and prior to big games like this, where they just don't turn their attention to their opponent too soon. And I guess in a roundabout way, if Ryan Day's saying that about a team that's built very differently than Georgia is, if Kirby Smart's saying that, why, or you would imagine very differently than maybe that Ryan Day is, that if both coaches are this adamant that the first step towards getting ready for a big game is doing a bunch of work to get ready for yourself, a bunch of work on yourself, the same way that Smart also says that prior to the starts of seasons too, then it must be really, really important. And I think you can kind of understand that the key to victory, in other words, doesn't rely on Day figuring out something about Georgia and exploiting that, or Kirby figuring out something about Ohio State and exploiting that the key to victory for whichever one of these teams win, and we both hope and believe that it will be Georgia, but the key to victory here is about doing what you do better, not preventing Ohio State from doing something, or conversely, Ohio State preventing Georgia from doing something. It's about leaning into what makes you you and trying to find a way to put that on full display in a game like this. And I'll add this, I guess, here very quickly. It's obviously very interesting to be Ryan Day in a situation like this. Day's getting some real questions and some real criticism. He's lost to Michigan now 2 years in a row, and you're left to conclude, well, if you have a repeat of that now a third year in a row coming back for 2023, what does that mean for Ryan Day and his status as a guy that has been praised one of the best coaches in college football? Seems hard to imagine you could still say that if he keeps losing the biggest game that he plays year after year after year. Well, all of a sudden now you don't quite have to wait until 2023 to have that conversation around Day. The referendum that we thought might come next November actually comes right now. Now, it comes against Georgia here in this game, or maybe if they were to get past Georgia, a Michigan national championship. But the same kind of stuff that gets you beat against Michigan 2 years in a row will get you humbled against Georgia in a spot like this. So as Day speaks to the reporters here right now, he does so with a little bit of pressure on him to kind of prove what he is as a coach. He has been praised. It's easy to understand why somebody like Jim Harbaugh says he sort of feels like the kind of coach that was born on third base and feels like he hit a triple. You sort of understand where that comes from a little bit. And he will now coach in this spot with a lot of attention on him, and really probably more so than Kirby Smart. Smart proved a lot last year by winning the national championship. Now it's Day's turn to prove one thing one way or another. And Georgia fans certainly hope and believe that he won't be able to prove that against the Dogs. Okay, one more brief stop for us. We'll hear from a couple of more sponsors, and then we'll give you your final thought to let your voice be heard before we wrap things up here today. It's Go for 2 in 22, responding to a very interesting Kirby Smart press conference a moment ago. One more word from our sponsors, then we'll be back for more.
Dog Nation's postseason coverage, Go for 2 in 22, is made possible by our partners including
Georgia Farm Bureau. With local agents all across the state of Georgia, Georgia Farm Bureau is the home team. Find your agent today at gfbinsurance.com.
Discover Dunwoody. Stay at one of our 9 hotels and enjoy easy access to 2 MARTA stations, which is just a short ride to downtown. Visit discoverdunwoody.com/DogNation to book your stay today.
Royal Caribbean. Reserve your cabin on the 2nd annual cruise with Dog Nation in April. Visit royaldogs.com to reserve your cabin today.
And now, back to the show.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all our great sponsors who made this so much fun. And what we're going to do here is take a couple of more of your comments. If you want to join us via phone, you can do that too. And we're going to take a couple of comments. We're going to get ready to wrap up. It sort of feels like we've been on air like all day long today, to be completely honest with you. We've had a good reason to. Obviously, we've heard from Kirby Smart. We had a really fun edition of Dog Nation Daily a little earlier. And what you should know is, because I think a lot of folks in the comment section, I'm seeing this, they're a little bit surprised to see us. Between now and the national championship, Go for 2 in 22, we're just going to kind of do this. We're going to pop on. When something happens, we're going to pop on. We're going to react to it. We did this for like the CFP rankings for a while. We don't really have those anymore. But when there's a news opportunity, when there's a chance to, I'm laughing at one of our comments. I'm not going to read it because it'll just get people stirred up. But sometimes I'm talking, I kind of look down and see what people are saying, and every now and then something kind of makes me laugh. In this case, it was Philip Jordan Wells. All right, but the point is that when there's kind of an opportunity here going into the national championship, when there's some news to react to, when there's a little bit of an update to provide you, we're going to come on here and do that. So if you're joining us right now and you're like, what in the world's going on? Go back to the beginning of the show. We talked about some of the injury stuff from Kirby, what Buster Faulkner's status as Tech offensive coordinator means for him with Georgia in the playoff, how Georgia's managing the lone player it currently has in the transfer portal. So we did a lot of this off the top of the program, and if you missed it, you can check that out. Or if you just want to hear Kirby Smart in his own words and not hear my loud mouth flapping around, you can go to the Dog Nation YouTube page and just watch Kirby Smart if you want just him and not my reaction. All right, so couple comments. We're going to get ready to sign off here today as we are Go for 2 in 22. Oren Chile says Ohio State can't create toughness in 30 days. It's not in their DNA. I think by the fourth quarter, we wear this team down. I think a lot of people believe that to be true. And I have to say that I kind of think the same thing. And I said this on one of my shows last week. I believe it was Tuesday maybe, or Wednesday, that if you're looking for the edge for Georgia, that is it. This is one of those things that's just sort of in you or it isn't. And, if you're a place like Georgia, obviously you have to have elite talent to compete at the national championship level. But when you've been so good at acquiring elite talent, now you can be more selective from the category that is elite talent. And you can start identifying the guys who have the talent but also have the toughness. And we've said over and over that the Kirby doctrine is, hey, take talented players, make them tougher. In other words, you have to have both parts of that. You can't say talent alone is good enough, because if the talent isn't mentally and physically tough, it's going to be watching games on TV like Alabama is right now. Or you can't say, hey, just give me tough guys. I'll take a tough guy any day of the week. Give me 11 so-and-sos, and I'll go out there and beat you. Like, that's myth-making. That's fairy tale stuff. That's not real. That, toughness alone isn't going to overcome talent. But when you've got talent that's tough, well, at that point in time, then it is a laugher in the fourth quarter, and that's mostly what Georgia plays. Games that are fairly inconsequential in the final 15 minutes, because when a talented player also wants to be tough, the other side typically decides that's not a game they want to be involved in, and you're seeing a lot of that with Georgia as of late, and we'll find out if Ohio State's ready to meet that challenge coming up on December 31st. I think you're right about that. Yeah, Jack Marino also a little surprised to see us here. So just know this. I'm going to try to get the word out. We did mention this on Dog Nation Daily last couple of days that we would be doing this. But between now and being in L.A. for the national championship, when we can pop on, do some Go for 2 in 22 stuff, we're going to do it. And we'll usually do it right around news coming out. Honestly, next week we're heading towards Christmas, so there won't be tons of extra stuff then. But the week after that's the week of the game. And this year's Peach Bowl is actually going to kind of be back to normal from a bowl standpoint. Fans don't care about media stuff, I understand that, but I do believe that you're going to be pleasantly surprised with how much coverage you get from the Peach Bowl, because we're going to hear from more players than we've heard from in the past, hear from more coaches than we've heard from in the past. So, this is the kind of sort of inside baseball stuff that media folks care about. But for the average fan, you're going to get a lot more access to Georgia in this year's Peach Bowl than you've gotten in any time since pre-pandemic. So I think you'll like that. We're going to be here to cover it for you as a part of some of our Go for 2 in 22 stuff. Parrothead also feeling very nice about the future. We talked about this on Dog Nation Daily today. Listen, Georgia may win the next 9 national championships, but for right now, I'm trying to win this national championship. So looking forward to 2023, looking forward to 2029, looking forward to 2045. I'm in good health. I plan on being here for a good long time to come. But for now, and I'm trying to be coach speak here, I'm just trying to tell you, is that when we started talking about Go for 2 in 22, people laughed at us because it was unthinkable that Georgia could win back-to-back national championships. So I'm not talking about anything else until the hay is in the barn on this one, because the prophecy is about to be fulfilled. Boom, Go for 2 in 22. Let me go to dognation.com for a minute, and then after that, we just got to go because it's getting late. But I'm glad to have you here, and glad we can kind of be relaxed, just have a little bit of a conversation. As I said before, if you're just joining us, you're wondering what's happening, we had some Kirby Smart stuff. Kirby spoke like 10 minutes ago, and so we reacted to some of that on the injuries front, on the transfer portal front. He kind of gave you some of that, so you can be a part of this here. Bobby says that Georgia punishes Ohio State. Too much depth for them to handle. Michigan showed you what the depth will do. Also, the hard hits that Georgia will bring. Go Dogs. I got to tell you, I'd love nothing more. I don't really know why this feels personal to me, but I just don't like Ohio State very much. Just don't. I mean, listen, I don't try to hide behind any kind of like facade of objectivity. I don't possess that. Y'all know I obviously have a rooting interest in Georgia. In this particular game, I have an extra rooting interest against Ohio State. Just don't like the Buckeyes very much. So I'd love nothing more than to see Georgia kind of go out and do that. Cam Hasty says productivity right now at an all-time low with all this extra coverage. Cam, I appreciate you being a part of the show. That's nice to know. And listen, it's holiday season, right? We got Christmas coming up. We got college ball playoff after that. We're ringing in the new year. I think it's a shame to think you'd have to be working right now anyway. Of course, I say that kiddingly because a lot of y'all are very hard-working folks. But this time in December, it's never easy to work. When you have college football kind of working overdrive the way that it is right now, makes that more difficult there too. So indeed, we're happy to have you checking in here. Kirby Donnelly says, I'll take that score and one of those shirts as well. Well, Kirby, we appreciate you being here, part of that. That's awesome, and glad to have you here. Diedrich Frazier also enjoying that shirt, and I thought our buddy Ryan Walker, what he made, we'll show that tomorrow on Dog Nation Daily probably. That was really cool. Ryan's a great dude, and a great job there for sure. Kirby Donnelly also says, give me my namesake's habit of saying every injury is day-to-day, but takes months to get back on the field. Yeah, that's the other thing. Kirby Donnelly brings up a good point that, it's like if Kirby had given you a more thorough update on the injury, I'm not sure you'd have believed it anyway, just given kind of what's been going on with that as of late. You're probably right about that. All right, final comments, and then we're out of here for today. On Facebook one more time. Joseph Kennedy says, Kirby did well with games that were favored between, like, say, 6 and 11 points. Yeah, Georgia, from a point spread standpoint, like a lot of teams do, bumps into a little bit of an issue when it's like a 30-point favorite. But in games when it's been favored really by less than 3 touchdowns, it's done pretty well in most of those. And this is right there around a touchdown. I did say that when the line first came out, I was a little bit surprised that Georgia was as much of a favorite as it was. I thought the game would be inside of a touchdown. I guess maybe this was a little bit of an anticipation of Henderson and Smith-Njigba not playing, so maybe that's kind of what some of that is. But these are the kinds of games in which Georgia has typically done pretty well. It is a fair point. And then last time on Facebook, and then we're gone. Foster Moss says, everybody doesn't have it made like you, BA. You've got the dream job. I do love my job. It is certainly a dream come true for me. But what makes it even better is to have folks like you stopping by to be a part of what we do here each and every day. So I am very grateful for that, and I try my best to never take one single day for granted. So for all of you working so hard out there to keep our economy humming in this state, I appreciate that, and let's work hard for a little while longer. Then we'll kick our feet up and get ready to watch these dogs go to work on December 31st. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of you, and of course, Go for 2 in 22. Thanks for being with us, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next time.